start up your own business, no matter what it is, you're going to have to focus on a business plan. You need a business plan. It's not a joke. You will need a business plan. So that's one thing that you may need to do. Now, my business plan did two things. One, it allowed me understand what my strengths were to be able to offer a service here in Nigeria. Now, this was for 1991. And I also recognized that I had something that most other people didn't have. And I had a burning passion. So I said, okay, I'm going to start off with a consulting firm. And then I'm going to transit from consulting into software. So I write this beautiful business plan. I rush back to Nigeria. I share with my father. He says to me, so where are you going to get the money for all of this? And I said, well, most times when young children are looking to start up a business, where is the first place that they go to? They go looking to mommy, daddy, or grandparents, or some close friends. Well, as brilliant and as rich as my father was, he wasn't about to put a penny in a business he didn't think was going to make it. So I was left with the only choice. Just push it, and push very hard, and push the streets. So I started off by getting a consulting engagement, and that consulting engagement lasted for 5 years. So on the strength of that consulting project, I got 2 other consulting projects. Two of them were for 5 years, and then one was for 3 years. Over that timeline, I was able to start now looking into my passion, which was writing software. And that's how we started. And sometime in 1994, I was driving off to the east with a friend of mine to attend my cousin's wine carrying. And we were having a chat in this car. Then I had a Volkswagen GTI, very fast car. And I was really enjoying this car on this drive. And we spoke all the way from Lagos to Anambra State. Along the way, we shared so many ideas, so many concepts, and I said to him, well, why don't we just try something? Let me come in next week, and I'll give you a prototype of what I think I can do for you. And he said, yeah, okay, fine. So I went back to Lagos. I burned the midnight oil for like 3-4 days. All the would-be potential girlfriends I had then left me because I wouldn't give them any attention. Okay, you know how it is to burn the midnight oil? Where you have to put something together over a space of say 3, 4, 5 days, and you have to do it late night. So, of course, my father was expecting me to bring some young lady that I was going to marry. But because of the time I was putting in this software stuff, I just couldn't make that time. Anyway, week later, I go and make this presentation. They love it. And they give me this fat contract. I'm sitting down there looking at this fat money, and I'm saying, I don't have anybody to help me work on this solution. So I needed to go and find software people. The biggest challenge I had is that I couldn't find somebody with the right talent. Big challenge I had. So you know what I did? I hired 5 people and started training them overnight. So by the time I had gone through 6 weeks of intensive training, I had 5 people who could then now provide me some basic software development skills. I am a strong believer in entrepreneurship. I don't think government can hire everybody. We need millions of small businesses to hire. That's the only way we can meet our employment goals. That's the only way. The government cannot hire everybody, believe me. So we must all find something that we can do and do it very well. So if it's your dream, grab it. If it's your passion, use it. That's the story I have for you for today. If you have any questions, please throw it at me. Now you can go back to your phones and your iPads if you have any. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Use the mic.
I seem to find a fine line between dream and passion. Is there a very distinct differentiation between your dream and your passion?
I can dream to be a shit carrier. I can dream to be a shit carrier, but to be a professional shit carrier. My father used to say to me, be the best at whatever you're doing, even if you're a graveyard digger. Okay? So instead of now using a shovel and a pickaxe, I might decide to use an automated digger. Okay? I could dream to be a pilot, but maybe my passion is flying, but I might dream to want to be a pilot. I can dream to be an astronaut. I want to go into space. And I'll now decide to go and learn how to fly, super jets and all that, and then end up in NASA. And then that dream is there, but do you have the burning desire to achieve that goal to allow you to achieve your dream? I always wanted to be in the software space, but my dream was to have a consulting company like my father's own. That was my dream, and I achieved that dream, but my passion is writing software. Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people talk about dreams. But when we get to school, sometimes the school chooses our dream for us. Somebody wanted to study computer science. They gave him an FA. That's fine arts. Will you go back home and, I don't know, somebody talked yesterday about studying accounting. And later he found out that his dream was to be a computer scientist. And then he enrolled again for computer. But not everybody can even afford getting a second degree of that. What do you do about that?
Well, my grandfather wanted my father to study law. And my father just couldn't figure out why he needed to be a lawyer. So he studied economics. Okay? So just to make his father happy, he went and studied the law and gave him the certificate and said, okay, are you happy now? His father said yes. So he went off, got himself another scholarship and went and studied economics. Okay? Yes, there are cases where you may not be able to find the money to go study the thing you want to study, but it will not stop you from making that effort. I had a young guy who he did estate management. Apparently, he could not get in to study computer science, so he ended up with estate management. But all his friends in school at the time when he was studying his estate management were people who were in the computer science department. So in the 4 years that he was in school, he literally was learning off of all his friends who were in computer science. So he came out a better programmer than most of those guys who studied computer science. That was one other way. I know some young kids who did 2 years of whatever it is that their parents wanted them to do. Last minute they said, look, no way. They reapplied, did JAMB again, reapplied, and then went back to now go study whatever they wanted to study. My young nephew, he did 2 years of physics. Hated it. Aced it though. He had A's in all the courses. But at the end of 2 years, he comes to me and says, Uncle, I need to study economics. So he goes back, he studies, takes JAMB again, and gets into Nsukka to study economics. He just graduated from Nsukka in economics. So there are so many different options that you can probably adopt.
Well, my name is Pius Okigbo Jnr. I'm the CEO of Infosoft Nigeria. I'm also the president of the Institute of Software Practitioners of Nigeria, ISPON. And I've come here today to speak to the young NYSC potential job seekers on ICT innovation and entrepreneurship. Being an entrepreneur myself, I found it worthwhile coming here to come and have a chat with them to share my own personal experiences. I think it's a very noble one. It's very worthy. I like the idea. It's always good to share experiences. If you don't share experiences, then they will have no way of knowing where the pitfalls might be. You share your own experience, you share your successes, and you also share your failures. That way they're better prepared in dealing with the challenges about to face them. Well, we have a myriad of problems in Nigeria, and it's one of skill acquisition. A lot of them would probably have to go back and look at ways to enhance their skill sets before getting back into the job market. If they're lucky enough, they might just find a good organization or a good company that would be prepared to invest in their skill development. So it's a myriad of challenges here and there, but it's surmountable.
Is to understand that technology is not for technology's sake. It's not about technology. Far from it. It's about making human life better. That's all it is. That's all it is. If you don't understand any story from here, is how can we make our lives better? You decide, I want to go to Kano. How do I do that? Which technology will do that? That's all it is. So, first of all, what is Silicon Valley? Silicon Valley is just a name given to a cluster of cities in California. And those cities, it became popular because they were creating different things around the world. So those cities, what we call the capital of Silicon Valley is actually a city called San Jose. It's not Jose, it's Jose, it's Spanish. It's just full of IT and everything. And most companies of the world are represented there. So if you check, most of the IT stuff is made in California. Then as you move from San Francisco, as you move down, so you have Hollywood. That's where most of the movies of the world are made. When somebody starts singing, after a while, they relocate to Hollywood. So as you move down south, you see San Diego, where the military armaments are made. All the technology equipment for war is made in San Diego. So you have to understand, that's why California is very, very, very famous. For example, Apple is in Cupertino. Apple is just, it's saying like Apple is in Gary. It's worth $500 billion, richer than most countries in Africa. So it's about innovation. And innovation does not mean creating new things in this aspect at all. It's just how to improve things. If you notice, for those of you, when you use your toothbrushes, notice the toothbrushes have different designs. They make them interesting. There's actually a group in Stanford University who just does that. Cards, from cards that you push when you go to retail stores, they redesign them, make them look cool. So it's part of innovation, trying to change the world. How do we improve life? So the most important thing is what we call passion. So you look at something you do not like about Nigeria, something you do not like about your city, something you do not like about Africa. How can we make changes? I'm telling you from my own Silicon Valley experience. That's how you start. Two people are sitting at dinner and they're thinking, we don't like this. How can we change this? And then they come up with an idea. And then the idea blossoms. So for Silicon Valley, it's just a group of cities, namely in the US, in California, just focused on technology. Everything is about technology. We got all the buildings around, everybody's doing one technology or the other. And if you want to become a world-renowned technology person, solutions person, you just have to think differently from your fathers, from your tradition, from where you're coming from. The way it works in Silicon Valley is that there are lots of people around the world who want to come there. Indians, Chinese people, all kinds of stuff, developing solutions. So you have to think beyond, because I always say, a technology person is a change agent. You cannot be thinking the old way, I want to change things. It's not going to happen. So I cannot do things the way my fathers did things in those days, and I want to change Nigeria. It's not going to work. You have to think, how can I make the society better? So first of all, it starts from your thinking. You have to think differently. And there are people, there's an institute in India called Indian Institute of Technology. It's one of the best in the world. They compete. They send people to Silicon Valley. So if you want to change like that, you have to begin to think outside the box. You have to see yourself differently. You have to begin to have the habits of a world-class person. So it was Motorola, the big giant. Then there's a small company called Nokia in Finland. Nokia is actually the name of a river in Finland. So they were trying to break into the US market because the US has the biggest market. If you can sell in the US, that's it. So the marketing director looked around and said, what can we do? And went to the malls. The US have a lot of malls. And started talking to parents. Well, do you know where your daughter is now? You can give your daughter one of these phones, you can find out where she is. Where's your son? And today the story is different. That's how the telephone became popular. And it moved from executives to everybody's hands you have today. So, the same thing, Nokia became famous, number one in sales. A company from South Korea called Samsung came along and started putting cameras. We that were working felt, what do I need a camera for? But guess what? That was what the younger people wanted. You see people at the malls taking pictures with their camera, and that's how Samsung knocked off Nokia. So it's all about innovation. You have to understand how, thinking about how we can make society better. Technology is just a tool. One of the things I say in consulting for changing, I always tell people it's not about the technology. You can buy the technology, it won't work. It's a willpower. What do you want to do? Once the customer decides on what to do, then it's easy to computerize. I hope you've been able to learn something from my discussion, and just be passionate, don't get discouraged. You know, there's always all kinds of excuses, challenges, but don't let that discourage you. Focus on whatever you want to do, and thank you for listening. Thank you.
Well, let me start with ICT, okay? The first question is, what is ICT? What is IT? What is ICT? Is it software? Development? Is it networking? Is it web apps development? Is it mobile apps? Is it PC apps development? Is it PCB design? Is it chip programming? Is it FPGA programming? Is it microcontroller programming? So these are things we'll look at today. How many of you heard about IoT here, please? Who knows what is IoT? Please, what is it? Beautiful, thank you very much. IoT. Who doesn't understand what it means? No need to ask that, I mean. Beautiful. The IoT is the next, how do I put it now, the next gold rush. It's actually happening as I speak with you now. There's a huge opportunity there. Okay? And the IoT, I'll go deeper into that a little bit. The IoT will revert what we call the embedded development on the microcontroller. The IoT now, we have also what we call big data coming up. So if you can key in there, that's an area of opportunity yet to be explored in this part. Okay, gradually being explored because we have NGOs like TD4Buy, I'm putting on one of the t-shirts because I'm a mentor there. First of all, I want to start with the definition of ICT because when I was still in NACHCOMSAT, there was so much confusion about ICT. People think it's only software. And it is very, very unfortunate in this part of the world. Everything is about apps development, apps, for goodness sake. There's competition, there's saturation for goodness sake. So how do we change that? How do we explore other areas? So I've been throwing, more light in those areas that are yet unexplored, those areas that we can build capacity. And guess what? It is one of the areas that can easily patent your products. Software is hard to patent. change it. Example, have open office, which is open source. Doing the same thing as Microsoft Word. He opens as well most of the files. So pretending in downstream, what we call the downstream of ICT is very, very difficult. And it is saturated. DD4PI is acronym for Technology Development for Poverty Alleviation Initiative. So it's actually an incubator, it's an accelerator, it's a training hub, it's an R&D outfit. And basically it is the only, or let me put it, active, upstream ICT hub. Well, let me start by deciphering what upstream ICT means, okay? Most of us here know about mainly downstream. Downstream is basically when you apply the product of upstream, which is mainly your hardware. Who has heard of a PCB, printed circuit board here? Father Pete, printed circuit board. Abdul, please get a board, pass it around to everybody. Just let them go through, let them pass it around. Give one there, give one around everybody. The other one as well, okay? Printed circuit board is the foundation of all electronic products. It's the foundation of ICT. Without that, no ICT, basically. Okay? It's a board that mechanically pins components and electrically connects them. That is the foundation. That is number one. So today we're talking more of the upstream ICT. As I mentioned already, upstream ICT is basically your hardware. You have your chip, your processor, you have your printed circuit board. Under your processor, you have things like your microcontroller, you have your FPGA, VLSI, that's very large scale integration and what have you. The downstream is what all of us already used to. Your networking, your application and everything. I'm a partially downstream person, and I'm more of an upstream person. So I want us to explore opportunities in upstream because in Nigeria here, it's practically non-existent. And it is a very, very quick area where you can start making money immediately, even tomorrow. You can start making money there. So far, you have the creativity and you have the awareness, which we keep creating even as we live here. So let's try to redefine ICT. Okay? So there are certain components I want us to look at. Automatic acquisition, storage, processing, manipulation, management, and so on and so forth. Your phone is an ICT product, beautiful. The same thing as your printed circuit boards. The same thing as your microcontrollers. The question is, how come we don't mention this often here? How many of you have heard about Arduino boards here? Arduino boards? How many? I'm not surprised. Beautiful. Pinguino? Pisiduino? No, I'm not joking. I'm not calling names. Thank you. That's the guy from the hub. All the people from the TD4PI hub, they already used all these names I'm calling. Of course, Raspberry Pi. How many of you? More people? Banana Pro? Banana Pino? Beautiful. Because use software to create a firmware. And what it is called firmware is that it is a midway between the hardware and the software. So for you to be a firmware programmer or a firmware engineer, you must be sure of the consequences of your action, because any programming you're doing, you must be sure of the electrical output. That's why it's called firmware. And once you're a firmware engineer or programmer, you have both worlds. And unfortunately, that very area is not fully developed in Nigeria here, and that is where we have huge benefits. So basically, the downstream, as I mentioned, is the software, which is basically the soul. So have the body, the carcass, then we'll have the soul of ICT. Who has heard about the transistors here? Beautiful, okay? What of valve? Valve, demonic valve, physics, I mean. Beautiful. Now, if you look at a typical microprocessor, you have millions and millions of transistors. Am I right? Fine. There's what we call a footprint. A footprint is basically like, let me put it, well, sometimes use the word estate. It's like just a small space a particular device occupies. Okay? You can have maybe 2 millimeters by 2 millimeters. I can pack there maybe 2 million transistors this year. I get it? Because at the end of the day, it is the transistors which forms the gates, logic gates, that actually processes all the commands coming from your software or whatever, okay? Now, with the same space, 2 millimeters by 2 millimeters, who could check what they call the process technology? Before it was 19 nanometer, today we're talking of 22 nanometer. What does that mean? Let me decipher it a bit, okay? It's what they call gate height. You could have a gate height of maybe this. Now, due to new technology, as Obi has mentioned, you're reducing this. Invariably, that means that you can pack more transistors in the same space as yesterday, 2 of us. Then instead of 2 million, the same footprint, I can pack now 5 million. What does that translate to? Means that the power increases, that means the processing power goes up, that means more features are added. So the more complex the software is able to launch it a second or a millisecond. So basically, without improvements in the process technology, you cannot have more complex softwares coming up. So in my opinion, generally, is the upstream that drives the downstream. And the upstream creates a huge opportunities which we can win.
Like the material that your friend took to somewhere, they may copy it, they may do whatever. When I hear that, it's a Nigerian mentality. Knowledge sharing, you were all talking about stuff here the other time. Share knowledge. Let people know what you know. The moment you teach them, guess what you do? You get better. When you teach other people, do you know that you get better? I give my material for presentation to people. The way I would, can you tell my daughter's story as your daughter's story when you are telling? Huh? She your daughter? You can't. Okay? So, when you make it, your value proposition is how you deliver it. If you don't know how to write a proposal, because he was telling you that thing about let somebody write it for you. There are 3 major items when it comes to making a presentation. 3 that you have to be very aware of. You must, first and foremost, manage yourself. There's some of us that are not meant to present. I'm serious. There are people that will stand in front of a class or in front of your client, and because you have the fear of public speaking, or you be, and they're like, there are people that are counting how many you are going to say, and they have tuned you out. Find the best person to present on your team and let that person do it. Don't say because I'm the MD chief executive, they're just looking at you and saying this is an idiot. So you need to manage yourself, you need to manage the material, and you need to manage the audience. Managing the audience is just scanning the room. If we've been at this for 3-4 hours, and I realized that, okay, I'm watching these people and they kept looking in that direction because the tea break is there, maybe it's time to get a break and let them drink tea. Because if you continue forcing, they're not listening to you, it's tea they're watching. Okay? So why do we make presentations? We make them to link goals, objectives with actions in a visible manner. When you present something, it is to actually incite a response from them. You are selling. And you're not just selling your material. You're not just selling your company. You're selling yourself. So how do you look to them? It is not then that your jacket must be longer than your hand. And you say, yes, we have come to make a presentation for you. Huh? To present information to an audience and ultimately to provoke action. There's several types of presentations and, monthly performance review. People in the bank, they do this, what they call NPR, every month. And that's when they're scared. What are your numbers like? You may be making a speech. I was actually commending the young man that Agu brought with him because he's still in school, right? And he spoke very well. He wasn't shy. There have been people that have asked me, they want to do this training, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, come, understudy. And they sit there. And then I say, yeah, take this track. And they stand in front of the class and all you see is sweat just coming down. They can't talk anymore. They freeze as if, oh God. So here are the 6 C's of presentation. You must exude confidence. They must not see fear on your face. So ideally, if you want to present, you need to practice. You will be shocked that if you're seriously making a presentation, even the people in your house, you may not be able to talk very well. So start with those people. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. Your confidence, your composure, your comportment, your courage, and you must be charismatic. People must see you and say, yes, I want, you know. And last but not the least, properly coordinated. Not to be on the stage and be the one that, have you seen those people, especially, I've seen some models that are working whatever runway like this, and they're wearing 8-inch stiletto, and the thing is breaking their knees as if, what's wrong with you? They're not properly coordinated. You should have practiced walking on that thing before you got on that stage. So, all this are the things that you need to put in place